Hello, my beautiful beings. Welcome back to the Beaming Podcast. My name is Brittany Hope. I'm so excited to be here with you today to introduce some new concepts that might be a little intimidating, or you may feel a little shy to some of these approaches, but I'm really excited to share these with you because they have been invigorating practices that I've worked into my routine as I've grown into the woman that I am today. I started my sexual healing journey back in 2019. This was when I pretty much went through a year of very intense healing and hypnosis with my healer Alta, and I moved on to really getting to the root of my sexual trauma that existed within me. And I was molested as a kid from 6 to 8. And I went through a lot of different trauma responses, but the one in particular that really came up for me was fawn. And fawn is when you pretty much become submissive and you don't know how to speak up and you kind of just appease to the actions because you don't know what to do and you're freezing. And that was another one of my trauma responses, was freezing within my molestation. And as I grew up, I didn't really accept or acknowledge that this was something that was coming up for me. I pretty much in my high school to college era, I was going through the emotional abuse and some of the physical abuse that I had endured as a child. But then coming out of my first real relationship, I felt really conflicted with what was coming up for me sexually. I was cheated on by my first boyfriend, and that was one of the worst experiences I think I had ever been through because I felt so betrayed at the end of that relationship. And for the last year of that relationship, when we were trying to kind of make it work after I had found out about the cheating, I felt like it was almost like a vase that flew over on a table and it shattered. And I was trying to put it all back together with glue, but it was never going to be that priceless vase again. And that was really hard for me to move through. So in our sexual interactions, I felt completely disconnected. And what was coming up for me in moments that were supposed to be connective and comfortable was actually really violating and triggering for me. I was starting to get really vivid dreams of my molestation, and it was really hard for me to cope. So I ended up terminating that relationship and went back to my healer to express what was coming up for me. And we started hypnotherapy for now the sexual assault that was really coming up for me later in life. And like I said, this is after college. So it's interesting how sexual abuse will come up in different phases of your life. And it's so fascinating because when I have conversations with people about sexual abuse, they always like wonder how that happens and how did I not know? But I was a child. And when you're a kid, your subconscious mind knows yes and it knows no. There's like no in between. And then I didn't have the adults around me to communicate with me and explain to me what was going on. I had the inquiry and, of course, like the safety and protection from my family members, but it was just something I didn't have. I didn't know how to navigate. And my mother and my grandparents didn't really know that was coming up for me at the time. So it was something that I didn't visit until later in life after really experiencing my first heartbreak, if you will, and feeling that trigger and that just emotional uproar within my spirit. So I was having a conversation with one of my really good friends at the time, and she introduced me to the CEO and founder of Yoni Pleasure Palace, and her name is Rosie Rees. She's a sexual wellness coach and relationship coach, and she created a whole brand about helping women connect back to their womb space in a loving and forgiving, intentional way, and introduced the concept of sexual practices in a way that was a form of self-love. I think oftentimes masturbation and things of that nature have a really negative connotation, but in reality, they can be super healing to the spirit and invigorating to the soul. And for me, when this was coming up for me within my sexual assault, I felt so numb down there. I swear, when I was having sex at that time, it felt like nothing. Like I would be thinking about laundry, okay? Like, or walking my dog, or just like tasks that I needed to accomplish that day. I felt so disconnected from my womb space. And when you're disconnected from your womb space as a woman, this can really push you into some of your masculine energy and take you away from that feminine nature. And when you think of femininity, you think of soft, vibrant, loving, and sweet. And I was feeling really masculine. And when you think about being masculine, I felt more goal driven, more direct, less sweet, less less tender. I was just really in a masculine energy constantly. And this was something that I really felt weird with because like I said in my last episode, I'm a Libra. We're very bubbly, we're very loving, we have a very sweet, tender nature. And I just felt completely disconnected from that. As I was engaging in different sexual acts, I just felt like lost within me. And this pushed me towards being a little bit more sexually active at that point of time because I'd been in a relationship for like 4 years at that point. So I was like, what is going on? What is happening in the world? COVID had just hit. And then I got sprung into a situationship, which I actually really honor and respect because it allowed me the safety and protection to feel comfortable with another person while exploring some of the sexual practices that I was engaging in at that time. And they didn't know that, obviously. I think I shared like little things here and there, but like not to the extent that I was really taking it. When I first got introduced to Rosie and went through a deep dive of all of her offerings and everything that she was doing, it felt like a mind-blowing moment within my femininity because I felt like I finally found a sacred space for women to really come together and express themselves and find themselves, especially in a sexual way, because I feel like that's something that a lot of women don't really talk about unless it's with friends. And sometimes with friends, it's not in a healing way, it's more of in a gossiping way. And Rosie really created something that was really revolutionary to me at the time because I had been doing healing sessions, I've been doing hypnotherapy, but I didn't really have anything that was helping the sexual problems I was genuinely feeling at that time. Again, like totally numb downstairs, like wasn't experiencing anything in sex. Internal orgasm was not a thing for me at the time. And she had so many different like videos, and I just went down a wormhole of Rosie. And I found that she actually had a membership. It was called the Golden Yoni membership, and she still has it to this day. I constantly refer my clients to it. I signed up, and I'm pretty sure it was a certain amount of money a month. And I really honestly should get back in there because it was just such a pillar of support for me at the time. And she had this whole module of just yoni practices and things that I had never even heard before. And as you're moving through these modules, you have a community of support of women that are on there just expressing themselves. Like you could literally go on there and be like, I am having problems with reoccurring BV from my partner. Has anybody experienced this? Please comment. And like 50 people will comment with their own experiences and advice and really just relating to you in a way that is there. It's a judgment-free zone. You do not feel like you can't say anything. And it was just like this anonymous group that I was in that nobody really knew me for who I was and just really honored everything I was going through at the time. And I just felt so seen. And when I started this membership, I bought her Yoni starter kit, I think it was called at the time, or I think it was her squirter starter kit, because I was really on a mission to figure out my insides and I really wanted to experience an internal orgasm. I had never had that before. I didn't even know what that was really. Well, like I knew what it was, but it just felt like impossible for me at the time. So I bought a Yoni egg, and this is a Yoni egg. I absolutely love my Yoni egg. This is a fresh egg. I actually sell these now, and it is a non-drilled egg. And the reason why I get non-drilled eggs is because I don't want the bacteria in a drilled egg, because you could get a drilled egg that you could put a floss through so that you can pull it out kind of like a tampon. And I didn't really want that. I wanted something that I could really just do naturally. We push babies out of our womb. I was like, I could get this egg out, okay? And I was like really getting familiar with this part of my body because at the time, it was the penetration for me more than actually touching that part of my body. It was the anticipation I would feel before intercourse would start happening. And this is when like the anxiety would rush through, the really visual thoughts I would have about my past, and just things would come up for me. And it was really, really hard. And I had to get comfortable with this because something I always tell my clients and people that I talk to is that something that is so fascinating to me is that people don't practice sex. That is like not a thing. Why would you ever just go somewhere and think that you are going to perform to the best of your ability if you don't practice? You have to practice so that way you can go through the motions and really honor what has come up for you in that way, especially if you're coming from a place of trauma or violation. And as women, we hold a lot of negative rooted emotions within our womb. So it's a really important thing to practice. And that's why masturbation should not have such a negative connotation, because because masturbation is actually a self love practice, a sensual, sacred self love practice to connect you back to your womb space with safety and protection and being able to honor yourself in such a loving, safe way. And this was something that was like so mind blowing to me at the time, being a part of her membership. So I got my yoni egg and I first started off by just like really holding sacred space at the opening of my yoni and really just breathing. It took me like 3 solid days to get through this. And Rosie explains this within the membership and her modules that it's okay if it doesn't go in right away. It's all about safety and really allowing your yoni to accept the egg that is coming in. And this practice, even just these 3 days of it not going in all the way, really allowed me to honor and sit with what was coming up for me in the anticipation of something entering my yoni. This was one of the biggest forms of violation I experienced within my sexual assault, and it was something I really needed to move through. So while I was having these dates, I called them dates at the time. I would light up all my candles, set the scene, and I would get comfy and make sure the door was locked, and I would sit there and I would really make sure that I was allowing the emotions that needed to come up for me at the time to come to the surface and really just cry my eyes out. And look, I've been through a lot of things in my life, but this 3 days was probably one of the most pivotal within my healing journey because it was the first moment in time where I really faced something so deep within my shadows. And I was crying my eyes out for like 3 days, just like moving through the reflections that were coming up for me. I was having really, really bad dreams. I was sleeping on the floor. I couldn't really get into my bed for like a couple months when I was visiting my sexual assault because it just like came in like a whirlwind. I don't know if anybody could relate to that when you're experiencing any form of reflection of something that you experienced in your past and your vulnerability was really taken away and you were violated. It comes through so fast. I don't know if anybody can relate to that, but that's what happened for me. So this yoni egg practice was really sacred to really just allowing myself to honor that truth within me. That's the interesting thing about trauma. It exists within you. It doesn't go away. It's a part of you. And you can either let that be your truth without honoring it and walk around feeling like this weight in your chest and this disconnection from this part of your womb space and just never know. Or you can choose to really honor it and make it a part of your practice, to really sit with it in your safe way and reminding yourself in those moments of sacred sexuality that you are safe, you are protected, you are no longer in that instance, and that you will be able to make better choices for yourself and really protect yourself and that sacred sexuality within you. And that was so invigorating to my spirit at the time. So when I started with my yoni egg, I finally got past those 3 really hard days. And then I kind of put a little bit of force and then pushed her up within my yoni. And all of a sudden, I felt this safety and this protection that, wow, like I really gave something permission to enter my body. And it felt so honoring. And it taught me how to go through my mental when I am experiencing any type of sexual activity. I know how to route my brain, how to talk myself through it, even if it's a stranger or because we have those nights, right? I know what to do with my mental so that I can show up in the way that I feel like I need to, right? And this was something I really needed to understand as a woman. And I would talk in the little group chat and like see like what other people or if they would relate to it. And it was just something that I was really figuring out for myself. And the best thing about a yoni egg, it's kind of like, think about it if you were going to wear ankle weights around the house and you were basically getting a workout in while you were doing chores. It's kind of like the same concept, but like in your womb. And it's totally safe. It's a one-way street up there, so it's not going to get stuck or anything like that. The only time that it does fall out is if you're like going to the bathroom and it was ready to come out. It feels like it's ready to come out when it's sitting like at the top of your G spot. It almost feels like that feeling like when you don't all the way put a tampon up and then it just like pops out. And it's the best practice. And it's so funny because I talk to so many women. It could be a complete stranger, and somehow, I don't know why, women always talk to me about sex. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because I'm open and I'm free and whatever. But I don't look at sex as something that's like, I don't know, like something I'm afraid to talk about. It's a natural act. We all do it. It's like, why aren't we talking about this more? People need to be educated. People need to know about these things. And yeah, I've talked to so many women about it. And that's honestly what got me to where I am today. And it's just insane how my practice and my career has grown into what it is now. And I have nothing but Rosie to thank for it. And I want to move on to another tool that was really helpful for me during this time. This is a de-armoring wand. I absolutely love these de-armoring wands. They were so pivotal to my success when I was really getting to know my womb space at the time. And like I said, when I was experiencing any type of sexual activity, it felt really numb. It felt like nothing was going on. And because I had learned from the membership that we hold a lot of negative rooted emotions within this part of the body, and that disconnect I was feeling, that numbness was a real thing. And Rosie had a meditation where I put it in my ears and she would walk me through how to use this wand. Basically, what that is, you have the bulbous side. This is more for like self pleasure. This side, this tapered side, is more for de-armoring. And what de-armoring means is that you're really rubbing these parts of your womb space out so that you can one day feel pleasure again and really honor these parts of your body that are numb. So you have three sanctions of the yoni. You have the opening, the G-spot, and the cervix. And in each one of these sanctions, you have an up, down, left, and a right. And as you're moving through this meditation that she offers on her site, you press up for 3 seconds and then you release for 3 seconds. And you do this in each one of these sanctions. It's a pretty long practice. But again, I was doing a lot of self dates. I wasn't really, I would make a date for myself, and I couldn't do this in the performance. And when I say performance, within the actual sexual act with the person that I was with, it's like, oh yeah, like take this and we're going to do this. I'm going to cry and I'm going to do it. No, 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 no. This is something you do for you and yourself. So I would move through each one of these sanctions and I would realize like, wow, I feel nothing. I feel nothing on the right side of my body. It was as if somebody was tapping me, but I didn't feel it. Like I was numb, genuinely. And as I would move through this practice, I realized like, wow, like I'm holding a lot of trauma on the right side of my body. And when I think back to my sexual assault, that's where all of my assault would happen. And I would just start crying. And I swear, like I did this a couple of times. Like I didn't do it too many times a month, but I noticed what was coming up for me each time, and I would come to this practice with so much love, and I really committed to it. And then I got to a point where I started to feel a little bit more sensation within that area, and then I guess I opened it up. To this day, I still like kind of position my hips in a certain way so it's more directed towards my left side, because my left side I feel more sensation and pleasure within that area. But this was such an important thing for me to understand within myself, because when I was engaging in sexual acts, I knew, okay, I need to reposition my hips, because if they keep hitting me from the right, I'm going to start thinking about laundry. I am going to be disconnected. Nothing is going to happen for me, and this is not going to be a fun time. So this was really important for me to understand. And I've talked to so many women about not being able to reach internal orgasm. And it's because you have these negative emotions within this space. You may be numb down there. There's things that you really need to massage out. And you could do this with your partner, but I really think it's something that you should do by yourself, because doing it by yourself in a safe space and really curating the room to be exactly what you need it to be allows yourself to be very open to what you're going to experience. And you'd be shocked to know how much comes up for you when you are experiencing sensual acts within this way. It's so vulnerable. It's such a sensitive moment in time. And it's something that you should move through with so much safety and protection. So, in a nutshell, that was my sexual practice. This is something that really helped me in the beginning of my healing journey and really gave me so much knowingness of myself as a woman, and really helped me just guide myself through this thing that we call life. And I know I've mentioned it already, but it's just really interesting to me that sex is not something that we talk about. It's just something that you're supposed to figure out. And for me, that was like a really scary reality. And I am so grateful that the friend that I had at the time introduced me to Rosie, because it was just the path that really opened up a groundbreaking knowingness of my sensuality and brought me back to my femininity, because I felt like I was in the fog of my masculinity at the time. And that knowingness just opened up such a portal of love and abundance and liberation within me. And I'm so grateful for Rosie and the fact that she's bringing this kind of work to the community of women that genuinely need it. And I talk to so many women as much as I possibly can about this knowingness. It's not like I just bring it up in conversation, but like they'll be confiding in me and I will tell them. And that's really how I started my whole business. Beaming is based off of just being a complete beam of light. And for some reason, being a safe space for people to communicate with me. I have always been somebody that has been like almost like a vault for people. They naturally feel vulnerable around me. They communicate with me. This is a gift that I really honor within me and I'm so grateful for. And I love to hold space for people to really feel comfortable to express themselves to me. And if I can offer any piece of advice or guidance within something like this, and this pertains to all women, not just women of sexual assault, this is a really big knowingness that all women should have within their womb space. Because when you get to know this part of your body, you have an unshakable confidence within you. You're radiating love and light from within. You have such a knowingness and appreciation for this vessel and this soul that you are carrying within this world. And you really become more aware of your goddess like nature, and I think that's something that's so fascinating within this society and where we've arrived as a community today is that this word goddess really comes up now. Femininity, duality of feminine nature and masculine nature. It's really at the forefront. And I think this is grounds to be explained in such a loving, intentional way. And I want this to be out within my community and a part of my story and my episodes because I think it's not talked about from this vantage point enough. I think sex can sometimes be a very exciting act for people to engage in, but sex at the end of the day is such a loving practice and it's an exchange of energy. If you're familiar with any type of tantra sex, it's a very compassionate, vulnerable, sensitive exchange. And it's something that should be sacred within you. And now I'm not saying to just like save yourself for marriage, because don't get me wrong, when I was experiencing all this and I was getting all this knowledge and I was really understanding how that girl worked, I was we had a time, a loving time, but it was a very crucial time for me to understand my yoni. And that was the best probably time of my life is when I was single and released myself from that relationship because I got to know myself really, really, really well. And we can talk about that in another episode. But I absolutely love talking about sexual practices. And I know there are going to be so many more episodes where we can dive into this, but this is just a little introduction to how I got into all of this and what it did for me. And I really hope that this episode touches you in some kind of way. And if you have any questions in the comments, please comment down below. You know that you can reach me on Instagram at Brittany Hope or Beaming by Brit. Message me. You can text me as well. My work phone is on there, and I would love to hear from you. And especially if you feel like you need support in this area, I also really recommend going and taking a look at the Golden Yoni membership. I will leave all of this information in the caption below so you can find Rosie. She's an absolute amazing person and we've connected personally. And I actually spoke in the Golden Yoni membership, which was a huge accomplishment for me. I think it was about 2 years ago now. And I was so honored because that felt like a full circle moment for me. It's like I went from feeling so numb and disconnected within my womb space to now speaking in this membership of women that really deserved this sound bath experience that I gave them and just a really sweet, soft opening to yoni practices. I really hope that this inspires you to get to know your yoni on such an intimate, loving level. And with so much love, thank you for joining me. Namaste.